Today we're looking at turning an old office chair into a small pouch. The first thing we need is some material, so I'll take this chair that was on its way to the landfill and cut the back from it. You could use an old sofa, an old jacket, or some other fabric for this pattern. Now we have some leather, we can get started. So what tools are we going to need for this? I use my maker's knife, but any sort of utility blade or small sharp knife will work. There'll be a link for a review of the maker's knife below. You'll need access to a computer and a printer to print off the pattern, which is available on the website in the link below. Once you've printed the pattern out, check the scaling is correct by measuring the test 2-inch line at the top. Then we can start on cutting the template from paper. I would suggest using a rule or straight edge to help. Before we start cutting any leather, I recommend watching this video until the end and then starting back to go through the steps. Let's just run over any of the tools that we might need before we start. Some of these are more specialist leatherworking tools that can be picked up from online retailers but are not essential to this project. One of the things we're going to need is a needle or two and some thread. You can use normal thick sewing thread. I'm using blunt leather needles and round hand sewing thread. If you're using this for more fancy goods, then you can use things like tiger thread or carriage thread. The next thing we're going to need is a pricking iron or stitching chisel. This is quite a specialist tool to leatherwork. You can just use a single hole punch to punch your holes through. I have a full set of these stitching chisels with 6, 4 and 2 prongs. I would suggest if you are going to be investing in these, you only really need a 6 and a 2 to help you get around the corners. Another important tool is our mallet, hammer, or as I have here, a maul. I do not suggest using a metal faced hammer. Next we need a hole punch to set our rivets. These can be found in most craft shops or online retailers. We will also need a dot anvil, which has got a small curve on one side and is flat on the other, to set our press studs. The setting tool and the anvil will usually be purchased when you buy the studs. So let's have a look at the first thing I'm going to do. As mentioned, is print off the pattern and check to make sure the size is correct using the scale. Next we cut the pattern out of the paper. We can trim around all the corners as carefully as possible because this is what we're going to use to transfer the pattern to our leather. Make sure you strop your blade or use a different cutting tool. There's a video on stropping in the description down below. We place our template onto the back of the leather and make sure the front is nice and clean. We then draw around the paper template. I'm just using a normal pen, but tailor's chalk will also work. Now for the scary bit, we're going to cut the leather. Make sure that we don't cut into the leather for our pouch. It can be easier to trim around corners and smaller pieces with lots of small cuts once we've taken it from a large piece. Once we've cut both pieces from the leather, we can fold the piece to make sure it fits and looks good. I use the flat side of my maker's knife just to encourage the leather to crease where I want it to. When it comes to placing the snaps, we want to use the pattern we printed, just to make sure they're going to fit and we're happy with where they're going to sit. We're going to use the curved side of the dot anvil for the cap and the setting tool and maul. Strike directly downwards a few times and check to make sure it's set evenly. You're looking for a nice even peen or mushroom over. When it comes to setting the bottom part, place it on a nice flat solid surface. Here I'm using a mini anvil, and use the same setting tool. You're looking for the post to peen over evenly. I'm just going to stitch down the sides and stitch the snap section onto the top. If you're doing this without the top flap, you can just punch straight through instead of using the second piece that we've cut. We mark a line straight down the side so we know where we're going to put our holes. So here I'm just applying some contact adhesive. This is a water-based contact adhesive that's specifically for leather, but thick heavy-duty PVA glue will work, so will wood glue. Try to stay away from super glue as this can damage some materials. What we do is spread some on both parts, wait for it to dry and apply some even pressure. This will hold the pieces firmly together while we do the punching for the holes before we stitch. Once that's dried, you can start to punch the holes and you can glue the sides down with the main body if you wish. When it comes to punching your holes, you want the tool to go all the way through both pieces of leather. When it comes to removing the chisel, you want to slide the leather from the chisel and don't wiggle the chisel backwards and forwards. Use the pulling block that are available from the website in the link below. I'm going to show a saddle stitch, but you could just do a running stitch there and back. Here we're using a stitching pony. This is a leatherworker's tool that is used to hold leather in place while we do the saddle stitch. If you're just doing a running stitch, you can hold the piece in your hands and just stitch there and back. You can use a domestic sewing machine with a leather needle. I'd recommend a slow to medium speed with a medium to long stitch length, and if you have a walking foot attachment, I would use that as well. What we're going to do is stitch the sides together and stitch the snap section on. We'll use a lighter to melt the ends of the thread and push it flat. And there we have it, one upcycled leather office chair, which was bound for the tip and has now got a second life as a small pouch. You should be able to get a few pouches from a large chair, or if you have a sofa or jacket, there are lots of other designs you'll be able to find. Make sure you tag me in any that you make on any social media. Affiliate links for the items featured today can be found in the description below. Buying any of these items through these links will help to fund the channel. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you aren't already, subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when a new video is being released. If you have any questions about what you've seen in this video or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below.